And well, let's get on it. Whoa! Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be reviewing a Shelby GT500, and I will finally be able to drive one. It has been years since this car has been released, and well, my day has finally come. First and foremost, though, a huge shout out and thank you to Tanner, who works here at the Larry H. Miller Chevy in Murray, for giving me some time with his personal vehicle. He actually traded in a Dodge Challenger Hellcat for this Shelby GT500. And I'll kind of talk about that a little bit more in today's video, but all you need to know is that, again, Tanner works here at the Larry H. Miller Chevy in Murray, so if you're looking for a new Chevy, definitely ask for him when you come here. I'll include a link to their inventory in the description down below, and let's get into the review. So under the hood, we have a supercharged 5.2 liter V8 that goes through a 7-speed dual clutch automatic. Power outputs 760 horsepower and 625 pound-feet of torque. And of course, you got the Shelby Cobra there on the supercharger. And just notice how far back the engine is here in the engine bay, obviously for weight distribution purposes. But yeah, it's just such a special thing to see because, again, they're hand-built engines. Now let's go over the front end of the GT500. So first off, we have this ridiculous thing happening here on the hood, which just every single time I've seen this in person looks so cool. And you guys noticed here with the little hood pins, you actually do have to press those every single time you want to open up the hood, and that is just to make it so everything is nice and secure with how fast this car can go. And then notice here with the daytime running lights, you got the normal like fishtail lights, and I think this is like peak Mustang headlight if you ask me. Everything after this just yeah, it doesn't look nearly as good. You got the turn signal indicator down below, and then tons of really aggressive venting all over the front end. Got another Cobra logo there on the front end, and then notice with the front splitter here. Now this is a quote-unquote regular GT500. This isn't the track pack, and so this is the more daily drivable GT500, and technically the squirrelier GT500 because, well, tires aren't as aggressive as the track pack, doesn't have as much downforce, and so it's the exciting one. But there's the front end. Now coming around the side here, we've got 305/30/20 for the tire and wheel setup in the front, and then 315/30/20 for the tire and wheel setup in the rear. And then you guys will notice we have these massive, and I mean absolutely massive, Brembo brakes. And of course they got to advertise that they got Brembos here on the GT500. Obviously you need tons of stopping power because this is a little bit of a heavier car with that supercharged 5.2 liter V8. And obviously with all the speed that you can basically put down to the ground with this car, you definitely want lots of braking performance. Anyways, notice another Cobra logo there on the side, and then you guys can see here with the side skirt action. And here's your full side view, and this thing just looks so sinister in black. And just to show you guys the whole craziness with the brakes, Brembo's in the back too, and again, look at the size of the rotors. Now this is like the most normal part of the GT500, and that is the key fob. You have the Shelby Cobra logo there on the back, and then, well, the rest of it's just normal Ford key fob. Now in terms of trunk storage space, it is identical to every other Mustang, so that hasn't changed at all. So we're not going to dive into that. I want more of this video to be dedicated to driving. And then notice here, the spoiler you get with the regular, quote-unquote, again, regular GT500. This definitely looks a lot more tame compared to the track pack spoiler. So, like, again, it looks really good, but it makes this car look more normal, if that makes sense. I think this is the version that's going to go down as, like, the beautiful classic version in the future. And then you guys can see here with the sequential taillights, again, another Cobra logo. And then look at these exhaust tips. And you guys are going to absolutely love the sound of this exhaust. It is just monstrous. But there's the rest of the rear. Now here is the door panel. You guys can see we've got this leather trim all over the door panel. You have that little like white stripe inside of it, which actually matches the contrasted stitching. But you guys will notice that this is pretty much the same exact door panel you get in like a GT Premium, pretty much. And then notice we got blind spot monitoring for the mirrors. You got stuff like memory seats. It says Ford Performance there. And, well, it's kind of hard to see, but you guys can see we have back seats in this. If you get the track pack, you lose the back seats, so that is a benefit to get this one. And then look at these beautiful leather seats that you get with this one. If you get the track pack, you get the crazy bucket seats, whereas this one has these like regular leather seats that are heated and cooled. So again, this is way more daily drivable. Got another Cobra logo right there. And yeah, just the overall theme looks so cool. Got your adjustments on the side, and then you guys can see the pedal layout down below with the light control just up above. And well, let's pop in. Now here is the steering wheel for the GT500. You guys can see Alcantara all around the steering wheel, except the bottom portion has leather, and yeah, definitely a cool look. I love the paddle shifters here on the back. They're actually out of the Ford GT. And then you know, it's got practical controls like volume controls, voice command controls, and then phone controls. And then we do have some cool stuff over here right next to the cruise control. This is to adjust the steering feel, and then this is to adjust the suspension. Then also we have that Shelby Cobra logo. We'll go over that in just a moment. And then turn signal stock, windshield wiper stock. You know, it's gonna have practical everyday car stuff, right? So here's the center gauge cluster, and this is probably the most important part of the inside of the car. Sorry about the glare there in the center, by the way. I tried to get it to go away and I can't. Anyways, full digital gauge cluster just looks absolutely fantastic. If we press that Cobra logo, it lets you go into different apps and everything, like your My Mode setup and all that. So it's basically just like a little shortcut button, but again, it's got a Cobra icon, so it's fun. Now with the suspension, you can go from normal to sport initially, and then with the steering, we've got our normal, sport, and then comfort steering that we can go between. And then we have a valved exhaust. We have a normal, sport, track, and then we have a quiet mode, and there's a significant difference between the different modes. I will rev all different modes later in the video. And then we've got the drive modes, which will pop up here on this side. So we have a normal, sport, and notice that sport will change the gauge cluster a bit, just like the Mustang GT. And then we have the track mode, which will change it even more, which is really cool. Then you got like your drag mode. Now, my favorite thing is I'm pretty sure in sport mode, it lets us change the suspension setup a little bit different. So we can go from sport. Okay, so still sport, normal, and that. Maybe it's the track mode. I'm trying to remember this, guys. Okay, so track mode should let us change from sport to track with the shocks. There you go. So that's kind of like a little bit of a difference that you guys can see there with the shocks. You can't access track shocks unless you're in track mode. Who would have thought? And then you got drag mode, slippery, and then back to normal. And there you go. We of course have the retro gauges there on top of the dash, which has definitely always been a cool thing. And look at the nice leather padding. And then popping to the infotainment screen, if we pop it into reverse, you guys can see backup camera with trajectory lines, turn of the steering wheel, you know, pretty normal stuff. And then, you know, this being technically the older version of the Mustang, if that makes sense, it has this infotainment screen, which frankly works perfectly fine. Response time's great. Notice you have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and well, that's all for that. Analog controls here for the radio. We do have heated and cooled seats, like I said earlier, and then you've got a bunch of toggle switches. The most important switches, right? Your exhaust and then your drive mode, but obviously stability control. Probably keep that on for your first little bit driving this car. 760 horsepower, and then the hazard light button right there, and then I love the engine stop start. And then yes, this does have the dial shifter just like the Ford GT. Press M for the manual mode, and then notice there for the parking brake. And then we've got the normal like cup holder center console setup, and then same thing, regular Mustang glove box. But the cool thing is, notice this is GT500 right there, which is definitely fun. And then regular Mustang roof as well. Now obviously this car is not for sale, so pricing doesn't really matter. And with that being said, thanks to Tanner for letting me drive his car. Let's drive it. Well, let's talk about visibility before we set off. Here's your visibility over the hood. Both the mirrors, which do have blind spot monitoring, and then throughout the rest of the rear. And finally, let's set off. We are setting off. I have the exhaust set to quiet mode, and funny, this is really funny. We have 94 miles until empty, and we have just over half a tank. That shows you just how economical the GT500 is. Like, I literally could not do my like regular daily driving in this car without having to fill up every single day, because I drive typically more than, you know, 180 miles in a day. Quiet mode is actually pretty loud. not with the exhaust, but you get just kind of like this low rumble from the powertrain, quite a bit of tire noise. It's definitely, yeah, it's not like, it's quiet with the exhaust, but that's about it, right? So we're gonna go from that to straight to track mode, because what I noticed is, just like the Ford Raptor with the valve exhaust, because you guys know I own a Gen 3 Raptor, it sounds not too different from like normal mode to like the sport to the, you know, Baja mode in the Raptor. Same thing with this. It sounds pretty much the same, but you know, we want to make sure we always have the loudest noises, because that's the fun thing to do. Now, something that actually really impresses me with this car is just how comfortable it actually is. So right now I've got the shocks set to normal, and ride quality is actually really good. Seat comfort is really good too. These leather seats, again, they look fantastic, especially for like Mustang. You usually don't expect seats this nice in a Mustang, but they're really, really high quality. And the air conditioning functions great. I definitely say if you were going to be using this as a daily driver, like what Tanner does, then I would definitely recommend going for these seats, because that track pack, right, those seats are not exactly the most comfortable. Other stuff I also want to mention while we're at the stoplight is, and you guys will see once we get up and moving, this dual clutch is actually really good. It's not jerky. A lot of dual clutches at low speeds will be jerky. This, it feels pretty close to a regular torque converter automatic. There's a little bit of like, you feel a little bit of something's happening, but for the most part it feels pretty dang close, which I really like. But yeah, this is definitely it's a pretty loud car to be inside of. Just like you hear the exhaust isn't too bad at low RPMs. It doesn't drone or anything, but there's not a lot of like sound deadening. Now I do want to pop this into manual mode. We're actually going to put it into sport mode here. Wow, those gear shifts, like instantaneous with the gear shifts. See what the steering is set at? Okay, we're in sport steering. You can feel a difference between, I was wondering why the steering felt a little bit different. I was like, you actually can feel a difference between the different steering modes. This definitely feels a lot firmer. Listen to those downshifts. Ooh, buddy. Okay, so we're getting up again. Yeah, these gear shifts are so instantaneous. It is crazy. And this is actually really daily drivable. I owned a Shelby GT350 for a bit, and I forgot like how daily drivable these cars are. Like you know, for like a high performance car, there's not like a whole lot in terms of blind spots. I had to get on it a little bit there. Wow, this thing is incredible. And one thing Tanner told me is that the handling on this compared to the Hellcat's so much better. And, well, let's get on it. Whoa! Wow. Man, this like full Owen Wilson. I want to pop into the track mode. Yes, we're on a track right now. It's probably gonna be kind of bumpy in the track mode. Honestly, on the interstate, like it kind of does this a little bit with the suspension because it's kind of bumpy. It's honestly not that bad though. And this is really like, this is a cruiser. I'm gonna pop yeah, we'll keep the shocks in track for now. That transmission is so responsive. Like this is so much more responsive compared to the Hellcat transmission. The automatic, at least. Oh my gosh, this thing's just on rails. Wow. Wow. This is such a special car. Man. Gonna pop the suspension into sport so it's a little bit softer. Just going over some bumps here. Man, this sounds so good. Okay, so gotta get another this thing just flies. So I've got the windows rolled down a little bit. Now the reason I have the windows rolled down a little bit is because we got some bridges here. Wow. This thing is an absolute riot to drive. My goodness. Oh my gosh, truck drivers. My goodness. I know I'm not talking a lot. It's because I'm enjoying the car. Like, I'm just enjoying this moment because this is the first and probably the last time I'll ever have a chance to drive a GT500. Just listen to that. That is so special. Ooh. You don't get nearly as much supercharger sound with this compared to the Hellcat though. This is like all exhaust, whereas the Hellcat, on the other hand, is like all supercharger. Oh man, all the GT500 videos are true. This thing struggles for traction. Oh, what a day to be alive. So, summing things up after driving this, I completely agree with what Tanner told me, being, again, someone, he owns a Hellcat, now he owns this. That's like such a cool thing to be able to experience, being able to own both of those cars. This basically gives you all the acceleration and thrill of the Hellcat. This definitely grips a lot better though compared to the Hellcat. I will say that. We're gonna pop back into the automatic mode. Automatic! Oh wait, there we go. So this definitely gives you all the acceleration thrills of the Hellcat, but this also handles amazingly well, and it looks so cool. I love how this looks. It's just so threatening. Obviously there's not a lot of these out there, so it definitely does have that specialness to it, but that obviously means that you definitely have to pay more for one of these compared to a Hellcat, right? Because there's just not that many out there. But with everything taken into consideration, if you can afford one of these, this is by far the coolest muscle car. And okay, I've driven tons of Hellcats. I owned a Camaro ZL1 1LE, and there's just something special about the GT500. It has something special that those other cars just don't quite have. Even though performance is pretty similar with all of them, there's just something, the transmission and the engine, the performance, just everything about this. And look at that, it's easy to park too. There you go. That's gonna sum things up for a video on this GT500. Again, a huge shout out and thank you to Tanner for giving me some time with his car. Like I said, if you're in the market for a new Chevy, reach out to him. He works at the Larry Miller Chevy in Murray. I'll see ya.